Hello and welcome back to redesigning my childhood characters by randomly rolling your suggested aesthetics. I started out this video by rolling 3 characters because this was supposed to be an easier week for me, and then I cut it down to 2 characters, and at the last moment I had to cut it down to 1 because just so much happened this week. So I do apologize that the speedruns maybe not as speedy as usual this time, but I hope you enjoy the design process of this character nonetheless. Before I get in and over apologize and over explain myself about this week's goings-ons, we gotta spin that wheel, baby. For this week's character in randomly rolled aesthetic, we have the childhood character Frosty, or Noel, the teenager, with the aesthetic biblically accurate angel. Okay, so biblically accurate angel isn't really an aesthetic. I think it was suggested as a potential secondary trait for redrawing my celestial characters, but I also added it to the aesthetics just because it's a fun vibe. Honestly, if we look at the source book of the Bible Ezekiel, there are a couple of different descriptions of biblically accurate angels out there, some with multiple different heads, a unique range of wings, and also the most commonly known and loved biblically accurate angel, wheels of eyes. As interesting as it would be to maybe sit down and try to convert the cherubim with 4 wings and the faces of a human, lion, ox, and eagle into a teenager's outfit, I decided to go the traditional route of decorating this character's outfit with a plethora of eyeballs instead. Right out the gate, I struggled a lot with the poses, besides being in sort of a creative block and just having a hard time in general motivating myself to get the things I needed to get done this week, let alone the things I wanted to get done. I was also sick and the brain fog was real. If I'm sick, I can take medicine for the congestion, I can deal with the chills. Even if I get sick or nauseous enough that I have to camp out in the bathroom for fear of sudden disaster, I can deal with that. It'll pass. But I hate having brain fog. I hate knowing that I have a lot of work to do and not being at my normal capacity for doing things. And to me, it shows very obviously in the speed draw. There are a lot of breaks in the drawing where I'm looking up references, or honestly, I'm just taking a break. And normally, because I usually do 2 or 3 characters per video, I get to speed these videos up to 40, even 50 times their original speed. This one is at 25 times the original speed, and I feel like it's a lot harder to hide how often my brain is lagging while I'm working. In fact, I almost didn't put a video out this week because I felt like I didn't work hard enough to make an interesting enough video, and I was kind of embarrassed that it's so obvious that I was struggling through this drawing, but I had to remind myself that given the circumstances, I did maybe not the best I could, but I did what I could. And also, I am human and I do struggle, not only when I'm sick and suffering. As much complaining as I'm doing about the brain fog, I do consider myself fairly lucky. I am historically very, very prone to getting sick, and the reason I've been sick is because my partner has been sick. And it's pretty hard to not get sick when the people you live with are sick, and he has had it much worse than me. So all things considered, I'm very grateful that I am not in a worse state. Okay, enough about being sad. Let's talk about Frosty's original design and character. I don't know if it's just because she's a more unique character that I remember her backstory, or if it's because she was the only one with a backstory at all, but Frosty is actually one of the more fleshed out characters from this particular region of the fantasy world map that I made as a kid. Frosty is one of the teens that work at the ice cream parlor where all the kids hang out after school or in the summer, but she's not part of the serving staff. Her parents own the ice cream parlor, and she dresses up as the parlor's mascot to hand out flyers to advertise upcoming events or special discounts. The parlor's mascot is a big old penguin whose name is Frosty, which is where she gets her nickname. Which brings me to the next point. Frosty's birth name is actually Noel. Her parents are kind of funky in the way that they had a Christmas baby and felt like they had to name her accordingly. But instead of growing up resenting the fact that she shared her birthday with a major holiday, she leaned into it and made it her whole personality. In her original design, she wears a bunch of candy cane striped clothes, she does the red shirt with the green shoes, and she accessorizes with reindeer antlers, or honestly whatever Christmas party decor that she can scavenge from the discount bin during the off season. Now, here's the thing. I think this new version of Frosty or Noel still leans into the Christmas thing. I think she loves it, but instead of going with the red-green overconsumption of cheap holiday decor sort of thing that I had going, she instead has decided to just fixate on one single hyper-specific part of Christmas things to obsess over and center her whole life around: angels. I think also several times she has tried to convince her parents to change the mascot of the ice cream parlor from a penguin to an angel, but the branding is just too solidified at this point. It would simply be impossible to change. I will fully admit that I was really hoping that biblically accurate angel would come as a trait to one of the celestials and not one of the teenagers. I mean, it just makes sense. A biblically accurate angel themed night is just so hard to pass up on. That being said, it was a fun challenge to try and think of how a modern day teenager would turn the idea of biblically accurate angel into a casual day-to-day outfit. And I honestly really like how this drawing came out. The only thing I really carried over from her original design is her blonde hair, which I even lightened quite a bit. And maybe you could argue the fact that she still likes layered clothing is sort of being carried over, but that's about all we have when it comes to physical similarities to her original design. The look I was going for is very modern, present day, very 2020s, so there's a bit of crochet, there's some DIY, the big pants small top principle, fancy clean white sneakers, graphic eyeliner, and most importantly, a middle part. So let's break her outfit down into the components and talk about each piece and how I tried to make them all biblically accurate angel core. I think every generation is to some degree interested in personalization and DIY in their own way, but I love the way that Gen Z does it. There's no fear, no concerns about resale value or what others might think, just a hot glue gun, a sewing machine, and a dream. And I say Gen Z as if I'm not also technically Gen Z, but I was born in 1999, which is part of the few transition years that come between millennial and Gen Z, and I have a really hard time strictly identifying with either category. So first of all, her shirt is a little cropped cami with an eye and 4 wings design on it. I wish I had spent more time making it sparkly, but I was being kind of indecisive and figured it was just going to get covered up by the layer on top of it, so I didn't take the time to make it sparkly. I was torn on whether the design was made out of fabric scraps that were top stitched onto the shirt or if it was some kind of iron-on decal, but in hindsight, what I think would be so cute is if this were made of some kind of glittery heat transfer vinyl that, you know, those exist. Love that. Be right back, going to make myself a glittery seraphim shirt real quick. The second significant piece of this outfit is her big baggy jeans, which I also love. I don't want to go back to skinny jeans. Please let the big pants era live long and prosper, or at the very least, let's not go any more fitted than like boot cut. Maybe we can go back to flared, but I don't think I have it in me to go back to skinny jeans anymore. I say as if I've ever been the best at following fashion trends, instead of warming up to the idea of trends like 3 years after it's gone out of style. But speaking of trends, there was one, and I'm not sure if it's still going around, but bleaching cool designs into clothing, specifically black oversized hoodies or jeans of really any color. This was one of the first ideas I had for this design because it's something that I've wanted to do to my own clothes at some point, but I have worn in the few jeans that I do have, and I am afraid to start DIYing something that is such a staple of my going outside in public wardrobe. But I also hate buying jeans because I cannot win the have a body that matches the industry standard sizing challenge, but I've always thought that bleach designs into jeans are such a cool thing, and I thought, why not live vicariously through my fictional characters as I do anyways. Plus, this just gets so many eyeball motifs into this design in such a simple but effective way. Another thing that I was trying to evoke was the ring of eyes aspect that we see so often, and I knew I could get a lot of eyes into the design, but what about that encircling ring part of things? Well, turns out you evoke that sense by adding rings of things that encircle parts of your body. So she has a little bracelet and necklace made out of spherical beads, as well as 2 lanyard, I guess, sort of things sticking out of her pockets with a bunch of little eye designs printed onto them. I was also going to go in and make each individual bead of her necklace little eyeballs, but I just got so tired and didn't do that. The last notable piece of her design is the crochet cropped sweater thing that she has going on. I actually really hated cropped shrug sweaters when they first came out. I wasn't ready to let go of the oversized hoodies, and I still am not ready to let go of the oversized hoodie. But also, I did lack an appreciation for layering and accessorizing, which is weird because, you know, you would think I'd know better because I watched at least one early 2000s Disney Channel show at some point in my life for sure. But since then, as per usual, several years later, I've come around on the concept of layering with cropped sweaters. And now this is another project that I'd like to try and make for myself at some point. These sort of mesh net shrug sweater crochet things, although I am the perfect height of getting flowy sleeves and pockets stuck on doorknobs, and this is literally a net. I am probably going to get caught on everything possible if I wear this. I know it already. For this design, I was initially going to try and make a crochet pattern that had a repeating eyeball shape in it, but for the sake of brain cells, I decided against it and just went with a classic net. I did make one crocheted eyeball applique just for fun. Also, for some reason, it just seems incredibly likely that Noel knows how to crochet. I don't know what it is about looking at her that gives me that feeling. I'm just so convinced that the two things she consistently does is go to the gym and crochet. And for the last bit of the speed draw, I am working on her hair, face, and hands. I really tried to remember to put the star and eye hair clip back on after I rendered her hair, but alas, we lost the hair clips in the brain fog along the way. Rest in peace, cute accessorizing, you would have been great. So for her makeup, graphic and cute, bright, funky, unique eyeliner has been all over my Instagram algorithms lately, and I love it. I didn't know that I could be so envious of the oddly specific trait that is the space between one's lash line and their eyebrow, but I digress. As per the theme of the whole design, I wanted all the attention to be drawn to her eyes. So she has a very neutral lip color and her eyes are the stare into your soul ice blue. I also really tried to emphasize the wings aspect of things, since wings don't have as much of a presence in her overall outfit design like eyes do. And then as one last detail, I added some white gold stacked but simple rings to her hands because, I mean, you gotta have at least a little bit of shiny metallic going on in a biblically accurate angel design, right? But that note brings us to the end of Noel or Frosty's design. I love the design. I might just have to recreate aspects of this outfit on my own in real life and in my own way. Kind of obsessed with the eyeball jeans. They're so cool and also just so effective. Since the headcanon is that all the kids get together and play D&D at the ice cream parlor when they get off of school or work, is it too obvious of an answer to say that she's playing an ASMR? I think in long campaigns she plays a more traditional humanoid ASMR, but once for a mini-series or one-shot she convinced the DM to let her play a biblically accurate ASMR paladin, and she put all her points into charisma, so every time an NPC was afraid of her presence she would say, "Be not afraid," and roll charisma checks over 30 every single time. Alright, enough of that. Wrapping up here. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for almost 2,000 followers. That's crazy. I appreciate you all very much, and seeing those numbers go up made a difficult week a lot easier. And I hate to say these things out loud because I feel like I'm just inviting the bad luck, but fingers crossed that next week I have my life back together again. But as always, who knows? Not me.